Now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
6:06 now on this super duper busy Thursday morning. There's a lot going on that we're going to get you up to date on. The latest out of the Biden family's corruption, as we've just laid out for you, and their new call for a wall. Imagine that. Joe Biden, build that wall. Next, he's going to say Mexico's going to pay for it next. Watch.
Yeah, well, can you imagine like a Democrat, like a presidential rally with Joe Biden, and people are saying,
wall.
build the wall.
And he's going to promise to lock up Hillary Clinton. He's just going all in, man.
You know that it's going to be the end of times if that's what happens as a Democrat.
Can I just tell you, I know once in a while Donald Trump might take a memo from you for a suggestion here and there. Can you throw this out there? This is just
sure,
hear me out.
Go.
Elect me. I'm going to build the wall, and Ukraine's going to pay for it.
Ooh. Whoa. Well, I think, can I tell you?
Come on.
If you don't make Mediaite or like one of these crazy leftist channels by that comment, Larry,
that would be fantastic.
Larry O'Connor, radio host, suggesting Ukraine build the wall. I get to see the headline.
How's Ukraine going to pay for it? Oh, I don't know. We just take maybe 0.5% of what we're giving them and then use it. That's
why not take the funding that they're giving to Ukraine and target it, bring it over to the wall, to the border.
It's so easy. It's just a line item on the budget
that we have to deal with.
I'm telling you that Trump will be the biggest applause line at a rally.
That is brilliant.
We're going to build the wall, and Zelensky is paying for it.
Pay for it. Oh my gosh, Larry, that is one of the most brilliant.
You're welcome.
I think I've
You're
heard
welcome.
All day.
Just send it to the president. You get the credit.
I'm on it.
And you'll be the comms director, which is I know exactly what you want.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm very happy being a co-radio host. Being your supporter.
Listen, either whether you work for the president or whether you're a talk show host and you show support for the president, or God forbid you actually attend a rally, knock on doors, donate, and
we all play a role, Larry.
Express support for the president. Well, yeah, and all the way down the line, no matter what your support for Donald Trump might be, the FBI is taking a very close look at you. This is one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen, and that's saying something considering the 5 years we've just been through. Newsweek magazine, exclusive, Donald Trump followers targeted by FBI as 2024 election nears. Donald Trump followers. Last I checked, that's 80 million Americans, Mercedes.
Right.
And we all have a target on our back, apparently. FBI is intent on stopping domestic terrorism and any repeat of the January 6th attack, so says the current FBI official cited in this report. By focusing on former President Trump and his MAGA supporters, the official said, the Bureau runs the risk of provoking the very anti-government activists that the terrorism agencies hope to counter. You think? We need to stop all of these crazy MAGA authoritarians from coming into power, so we're going to be more authoritarian than anyone has ever dreamed. We're going to target them for an FBI scrutiny. Honestly, I see no other solution for the Federal Bureau of Investigation other than, as Vivek Ramaswamy says, you just got to cancel the whole damn thing. It's become so out of control.
I wish to God, the Republicans would have the majority in the House and the Senate and really take on the FBI and dismantle them. Okay, there was an article that came out a couple of days ago where literally you have the FBI interviewing, going after this, they call it the Christian sect that Amy Coney Barrett was involved in. They call it a sect, right? They don't go after, FBI does not go after the satanic cults.
Right.
They don't go after the satanic conferences.
Or the child traffickers.
No.
Yeah.
They go after the MAGA Republicans. They all call it, anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremism. They go after the Catholics. They go after the Christians. The FBI needs to be dismantled. They go after conservatives. It does not stop. This political leadership at the FBI is first of all, the abuse of power, the amount of power those people have to destroy people's lives. Okay, and these are everyday Americans. These are not like, in some cases, these guys are just trying to live their lives.
So
no,
you're
it
right.
does not stop.
Newsweek spoke to over a dozen current or former government officials who specialize in terrorism in a 3-month investigation. Most requested anonymity. Newsweek also reviewed secret FBI and Department of Homeland Security data that track incidents, threats, investigations, and cases to try to build a better picture. And
okay. I found this one quote. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm really upset about this. I need to go into prayer because it's like this really set me off. The last part that says the FBI and DHS report concludes, quote, socio-political developments such as narratives of fraud in the recent general election, the emboldening impact of the violent breach of the U.S. Capitol, conditions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and, quote, conspiracy theories promoting violence will almost certainly spur some domestic terrorists to try to engage in violence. So if you question the election, if there's misinformation in terms of you question about anything dealing with COVID-19, come on. This is then putting you in the category of domestic terrorism?
Because they're doing exactly what we have 3 branches of government. We got judicial, we got legislative, and we got executive. And the executive branch is what oversees the Justice Department and the FBI. And who runs the executive branch? That would be the President of the United States, Joe Biden. I vividly remember Joe Biden standing in front of a what looked like a blood-drenched Independence Hall in Philadelphia with an unhinged rant about MAGA Republicans, a threat to our very democracy.
Yes, extremists.
He put out on Twitter, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. When the leader of the executive branch, the President of the United States, sets a tone like that for his DOJ and the FBI, then clearly the FBI says, oh, I guess we got to look at these people. So now Trump supporters are targeted as domestic terrorists and under intense investigation right now.
And parents who are critical of these crazy
parents at school board meetings. Absolutely. So, and I hate to do this, but I gotta. The director of the FBI is Christopher Wray, and he was appointed by Donald Trump. And when I interviewed Donald Trump a year ago next week, I interviewed Donald Trump. That was the last time I interviewed him. And I said, do you regret appointing Christopher Wray as the director of the FBI? This is just months after the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. And even then, Donald Trump couldn't definitively say, yeah, that was a big mistake. I should have never put him there. I'll get rid of him if I become president. He's sort of does he get it now? Does he understand some of the bad personnel choices that he made when he was president?
In our conversations, absolutely. And my understanding, he has been critical of Christopher Wray. Yeah.
You know who recommended that he appoint Christopher Wray, by the way? Chris Christie. He took Chris Christie's advice.
Yes. Horrible, I tell you.
All right.
No, Chris Christie is a non-factor.
I want to hear from Donald Trump that when he becomes president on day one, he will fire Christopher Wray and do a complete and total, proctologist review of the FBI. And if it means it needs to be dismantled, then he will recommend that to Congress, and they move the legislation forward to dismantle it. I've lost faith.
A total colonoscopy. That's what I'm thinking.
Oof. Don't put it like that. You're hitting a little too close to home. I got an appointment looming on my calendar right now.
I know. I need to get my appointment into it. It's pretty bad.
It's just I'm not looking forward to it. Let's not go there. Yeah, it's 6:15. WMAL. Let's continue this program while we're not arrested by the FBI. Okay, while we still have a chance. It's 6:15. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Oh, by the way, the FBI denies this report from Newsweek. But do you believe that? No. Jamie Witten's in the Hadid Carpet.
Chris Plant Show, the Republicans battle over who the next speaker will be, while the Democrats and the media try to destroy them. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
studentaid.gov/save.
That's the coolest president in the world because he wears Ray-Ban aviators. That's Joe Biden yesterday telling you exactly what website to go to if you would like to get some illegal, unconstitutional student loan relief.
studentaid-gov/save. studentaid.gov/save.
That's some good stuff right there. Yeah, he talked about how he worked with the current leader of the Democrats in the House to make this happen.
I joined with Minority Leader Jeffries.
He doesn't even know the name of the Democrat leader in the House. Well, at least he didn't call him boy. We should be thankful for that. That's what he usually does.
Yes,
when he refers
exactly.
to an African American holding elected office. Isn't that what he? Mercedes, what he is announcing here with $9 billion in so-called relief for 125,000 borrowers of student loans is unconstitutional and, according to our friend Mark Levin, a complete and total impeachable offense. Let's be clear. He's tried this already. He's already tried to unilaterally, through the executive branch, give so-called student loan relief. Now, let's just be clear what student loan relief is. What it is letting people with college degrees, bachelor degrees, master degrees, what have you, doctorates even, off the hook. Completely off the hook, where they don't have to pay the debts that they agreed to pay. Meanwhile, someone like me who didn't go to college, I am going to have to burden that.
You didn't go to college? I didn't even know that.
I did not go to college.
I feel like I know a lot about you, and I didn't know that about you.
I do not have a college degree. Or for someone like me who has actually stepped up and covered my children's college expenses, we get penalized because we've done the right thing and acted responsibly. Well, Mark Levin points out that he's already tried this, and he lost that case in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court definitively said the president does not have the constitutional authority to make a unilateral spending decision like this. And now here he is defying the judicial branch at the highest level and going forward with this. That is a high crime and misdemeanor. He is violating the Constitution, and he can't say he doesn't know because the Supreme Court just spanked him last year about this. So add this to the list of reasons why we should impeach this man.
So, and here's Joe Biden's argument is that they're fixing these programs, right? This income-driven repayment plan, this public service loan forgiveness. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to do this through the executive branch to provide this loan forgiveness to this 125,000 Americans.
Yeah.
But, not only is it unconstitutional, but you have to remember, for Biden, this was always a political play. This was about trying to reach out to the millennials to say, I know you're hurting. But don't you think this is hysterical, too? Yeah. You would think that if Bidenomics would be working and people would be doing so great under this economy, they'd be like, I could totally pay for my student loans.
That's right.
But they can't because Bidenomics sucks. It's not working.
I thought the economy was great. I thought Bidenomics fixed everything. So why would people need student loan debt? It's a great point here. But let's get to the most important part of the story. This teacher in Missouri who...
Oh, yes, the teacher in Missouri.
Don't act like this is your story. You brought this to the table, Mercedes.
I did.
You said this is a perfect example of the kind of person who needs student loan debt relief.
Right.
Her name is Brianna Coppage. She's a teacher in Missouri, and she's on leave now because she got very creative in figuring out a way to earn some extra money to pay off her student loan debt. She sounds
like, who was this? Was it the senatorial candidate?
That's Susanna Gleason, the woman running for state delegate down in Richmond.
Yeah, so this teacher, English teacher, she started posting adult content to supplement her $42,000 school salary.
Yeah,
because she was like, the student loan debt drove me to a porn career.
Right. She started an OnlyFans page. She would earn $10,000 a month, by the way.
Wow.
On her private porn page.
Wow.
She's 28 years old. She was suspended from St. Clair High School. Imagine if you're a high school kid in this woman's class.
I don't know. It makes this woman, then don't become a teacher. Like, hone in on a different job or get a second job that's not a porn career. It just doesn't really work with, educating kids.
I love that you immediately, start to go to the logic of this and try to, lecture the woman for choosing her career problem here. And all I'm thinking is the 16-year-old kid who's got this woman is a teacher, and she's got the glasses on. She's wearing glasses when she's a teacher, but maybe glasses are the only thing she was wearing when she was on her OnlyFans page.
Oh,
that might be part of the thing.
Larry, please.
This is every high school boy's fantasy. Come on.
Please.
And she's playing right into it.
It was a financially driven decision to quit the classroom and keep her off-hours OnlyFans gig, and then the school administrators, they discovered her sex work job. Not a good idea. I mean, I don't know. It's just not smart. But then she's blaming it on student loans.
Of course it's smart. She's got glasses. Look at her.
OnlyFans is going to help. What is it called? I don't even know what that thing is called. OnlyFans is going to help you get rid of your student loan debt.
There you go. See, it's win-win for everyone. 623. Keep it here. There's more to come. 6:30 at O'Connor and Company. We're going to talk about crime in D.C. and what we might be able to do about it.
WMAL-FM Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
Now
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
We're going to build the border wall, and Ukraine's going to pay for it. The greatest campaign messaging. And I'm giving it to him for free, Mercedes.
You shouldn't give it to him for free, but it's brilliant. It's the most. I have to say, I'm enlightened. I can't believe it. In fact, I'm actually. I'm so proud of you, Larry.
Thank you.
You've grown so much.
I've learned something. You're rubbing off on me, as they like to say.
I try.
Coming up at 8:05, Andy McCarthy on the latest civil trial developments for Donald Trump in New York, and then at 8:35, Susan Ferricchio, Washington Times, on who the next speaker might be. Donald Trump, by the way, yesterday said that he would do whatever it takes in the best interest of the American people and the Republican Party. If he's called to be speaker, he would do it. Mercedes.
Really? Now, look,
Yes.
I think there was a fun Truth Social post of him with the gavel.
Yes.
This is where Donald Trump is brilliant, right? Donald Trump knows how to basically seize the moment, and that's what he does. So he creates this speculation.
Yeah.
But we all know that Donald Trump, look, he'd be an incredible speaker. He'd be an incredible president.
One thing that he said during his last speech at CPAC was that the crime in Washington, D.C. has reached epidemic levels, and he thinks, as I do, that we need to re-examine the home rule provisions here. It's a failed experiment. Zack Smith is a legal fellow and manager of the Supreme Court and appellate advocacy programs over at Heritage Foundation, and he served as an assistant U.S. attorney for many years. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Smith.
Of course. Thanks for having me on this morning.
The carjacking of Congressman Cuellar this week sort of added to this continued violent crime epidemic in D.C. And when we had Phil Mendelson, chairman of the district council, on the air, one of his complaints was actually the U.S. Attorney's Office here, which is out of his control. That's actually a position appointed by the president. Can you sort of explain how the U.S. Attorney's Office works here in D.C. and why their soft on crime policies could, in fact, be affecting this crime problem?
Yeah, so the District of Columbia is unique. It's obviously the capital of our nation. It's not a state. It's not a local government in the sense we traditionally think of. Yeah, you're right, that it shouldn't be a state for a lot of reasons. But because of that, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the federal prosecutor's office in the District of Columbia, functions like a local district attorney's office would in many other jurisdictions. Now, complaints about the U.S. Attorney's Office in the District of Columbia are well taken. They decline an exceptionally high number of cases. They've refused to prosecute many cases that likely should have been brought. But look, Larry, we shouldn't let Phil Mendelson off the hook so easy. In large part, good, because the crime crisis that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now is largely a product of the radical, so-called reforms that Phil Mendelson, Charles Allen, and other D.C. council members have put in place. Keep in mind, Phil Mendelson, when he was testifying in front of Congress in March of this year, had the audacity to say that there isn't a crime crisis happening in the district. Charles Allen pushed a police budget last year that cut $15 million from the Metropolitan Police Department. He said it was expected to lead to a loss of 200 officers, the largest single loss of officers that he's ever seen, and he was proud of that. So I think the D.C. Council, by and large, deserves a lot of blame for this crime crisis.
100%.
So, I mean, what can come next in terms of how do we get a handle on this issue of crime in D.C. and what more can Congress do to really put pressure on the city council and to say, look, we got to get this crime situation under control. I mean, Henry Cuellar, he's saying that it's more dangerous Washington, D.C. than his border district in Texas. I mean, this is insane. And they're not even prosecuting these crimes. So that's my other point here. My other question here is the fact that you have these prosecutors that literally are not going after the criminals.
Yeah, well, look, carjackings, they're up about 108% so far this year. DC's hit over 200 homicides, really the quickest it has in almost 2 decades. And so the congressman's right. The District of Columbia is a very dangerous place right now. One of the easiest things that can be done to combat this crime crisis, you need more police officers on the street to patrol neighborhoods, and they need to be empowered to do their job responsibly, which unfortunately the D.C. Council has not allowed them to do. Yeah. Now, in terms of prosecuting criminals, you're right. The D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office needs to bring more prosecutions. Particularly, it needs to prosecute violent felons. 922G cases, felon in possession of firearm cases, are easy cases to bring. They should be focusing on those. And then one of the things that's not talked about enough, I think, is the D.C. Attorney General. He's pledged essentially not to prosecute any juveniles as adults, regardless of the crimes they commit. And so I think focusing on juvenile prosecutions, making sure that those who commit violent crimes like carjackings, murder, rape, robbery, that those juveniles are prosecuted as adults in certain appropriate circumstances.
Those are, listen, the violent crimes obviously are horrible, and the fact that they're soft on those crimes is a problem. But then the so-called nonviolent crimes, I'm sure you saw this report from Sierra Fox at Fox 5, who covered this CVS in Columbia Heights, where literally the shelves were completely emptied. Right. People went in and ransacked the place and stole everything off the shelves. And that has, I know they'll call this nonviolent, but this has such a debilitating effect on a neighborhood as well as businesses. Now, CVS will pull out, and people will start screaming that the big corporations are pulling out of these neighborhoods because of systemic racism or something. But it's because of the crime. That's because of the crime that the city doesn't take seriously.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Look, I think this shows there really is no such thing as a victimless crime, and that these so-called quality of life crimes, like what the council members and others have said, petty theft, prostitution, simple possession of drugs, those aren't victimless. They really do harm their communities. And I saw the report about the CVS, but look, we heard several weeks ago about Giant threatening to pull out of Ward 8. Mm-hmm. If Giant pulls out of Ward 8, that community will lose its only grocery store. And so these crimes absolutely do affect the communities where they happen. And I think this goes to show why it's so important to invest in community safety, to invest in proactive policing, and then to make sure that prosecutors are doing their job and prosecuting criminals.
Well said, Zack Smith, Heritage Foundation. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and listen, the bottom line is if you agree with us that Black lives do in fact matter, then you would be the ones who were leading the charge to make sure the police actually enforce the crime, prosecute criminals, protect Black lives, and protect the neighborhoods that Black people live in. This lie that Black Lives Matters means that you defund the police. It's the you defund the police, you're actually harming Black lives across the board. I will not take a backseat to anyone who claims that they're embracing some sort of anti-racism ethic by defunding the police. They're the ones who are harming Black lives. It's 6:44. Well, these are tough days to be a Catholic around the world. Pope Francis yesterday officially opened the 16th Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops, which basically means, and this is basically a synod, and a synod is basically a meeting, a group of people getting together. And in parishes all around the world, Catholics, lay people were meant to and asked to join with their fellow Catholics at their churches, have conversations about the faith, about what's working, what's not in terms of the practice of the faith, suggestions, questions, concerns. That was then brought up to various bishops in the dioceses around the world, and now they are all meeting and bringing the results of that to the Vatican. And many people are concerned about a move toward changing certain doctrines that can't be changed about same-sex relationships, same-sex marriage. That seems to, because the most famous synod was of the German bishops who came up with a determination that same-sex relationships can be blessed, which, of course, same-sex relationships are inherently sinful if they are sexual in nature, and therefore they cannot be blessed because you cannot bless something that is sinful. So people are very concerned about where this thing is headed.
It is very concerning. Now, I do think that a part of this is that the media just latches on to anything that's being thrown out there in terms of what's being included in the terms of these suggestions or recommendations.
100%.
So what they do in the different parishes is that they basically get together and then they offer suggestions that then end up becoming part of this bigger report that then the bishop reviews and then most of the time doesn't accept too much. Interestingly enough,
real fast, I just want to jump in because our Protestant friends might be listening to this and they might, not quite. Catholics around the world can offer suggestions about various aspects of the faith, but not about the doctrine and dogma of the Catholic faith and morals, which we believe are unchanging through Scripture and tradition handed down by revelation from Jesus and the prophets. So there's some things that just can't be changed. That's what people have to understand. Like, there was a big debate amongst the Southern Baptists this year about whether women should be ordained or not. And they chose, like Catholics, to say, no, women can't be ordained. But there are other denominations where they have a popular vote and they say, okay, well, now we're going to ordain women. That's not how Catholics work. This is not a democracy. All right. It's very medieval.
The interesting thing is they have included about 54 women as part of the synod, committee, and which is interesting because they'll have voting rights at this point.
Right, but not on things on whether they can be ordained.
There's always a controversial questions of should, women be priests, or the vow of celibacy, or this whole idea of the same-sex couples.
Right.
They're going to raise up these questions, and there's some of these very controversial participants of the synod, including Brother James Martin, who's very pro-LGBTQ.
Yes.
There's also a nun that pushes the LGBTQ agenda. So this is what's very concerning to many Catholics in the fact that, it's not representative of where the Bible is and where the church is.
Where the church, right, exactly. And these unchanging doctrines that, again, I'll reiterate, can't be changed. And I think you're right. There's a lot of, listen, I think that Pope Francis, I'm trying to be as generous as possible and think that he is just trying to be as open as possible to hear everybody's opinions before falling down, as he has. Whenever asked about LGBTQ issues, he has always fallen down on the side of tradition and doctrine. And I think that that's where we're going to end up. But he's going through this process to show that he's not being closed-minded, and we're having the conversation.
Catholic News Agency basically tweeted this out just days before the synod on the synodality kicks off its first round of meetings at the Vatican. A letter from Cardinal Joseph Zen has been leaked to the media, voicing serious concerns to cardinals and bishops worldwide about the gathering in Washington. They accused the synod organizers, this is fascinating, of manipulation and pursuing an agenda rather than allowing for authentic ecclesiastical discourse. That is, it just shows that you have those cardinals who are very concerned about the direction of the church as they viewed these materials that were a part of the synod.
Yes, well said, and it is something that we should all be on top of. I just want two quick things. The first is to echo what you said. I think that the media definitely tries to push an agenda here, and if you want, go back and look at what the media was saying back in the 60s before Pope Paul VI reaffirmed the church's opposition to artificial contraception. If you look at the news reports leading up to that statement, they all said, "Oh, he's going to allow contraception. He's going to allow contraception," because they were pushing it. So then everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, we're so shocked." Don't be shocked if a pope ends up actually acting Catholic. Okay, number one.
Well, and that's what Catholics are. Sorry, this is such a big issue for both you and I. We need to have like a 10-hour conversation about this.
That's for our podcast.
But say number two. I feel bad.
Really quickly, number two on Pope Francis, and one of his shortcomings is that part of the Pope's job is to be a teacher, and teachers need to be clear. And you have to understand when they make a statement, it needs to be unequivocal, and you have to understand what he's actually saying. And this Pope is very bad at that. Go ahead.
Well, this Pope sends a lot of mixed messages where he's really so obsessed right now about climate change. And that seems to be what the media is reporting. And then really trying to, okay, well, let's figure out, like, how can we handle these other issues, like modern day slavery, the sex trafficking issue, which is obviously really demonic and needs to be stopped. Yeah. So I just want to add one point here. As Catholics, we are called to pray for this Pope.
Yeah.
And that is always when I ask my pastor, I'm like, Pope Francis drives me crazy. He's like, you have to pray for the Pope. We have to pray for our Pope.
We've had really bad popes in our history. And as bad popes go, this guy is not nearly as bad as the ones we've had. So, yes, pray for the Pope. Pray that he does his job and utilizes the charism of infallibility.
The inspiration
the Holy Spirit
of
needs
God
to
make the right decisions of what we need to follow.
And everything will be fine.
There will be a schism in the Catholic Church.
Right.
There will be a schism in the Catholic Church if this goes in a radicalized direction.
That's right. And you and I are starting our own sect. We're gonna